Good afternoon, everyone. To those who have joined us now, we are just going to give a couple of minutes for a few more people to join, and then we'll make a start. Please bear with us for a couple of minutes. For all those who have just joined us now, the reason for us being silent is that we are just allowing for people to join. There is a steady inflow of people coming in. We'll give them a minute or so before we make a start. Good. Again, a warm welcome to all of you who have just joined us, and thanks to those who have joined us on time. So your patience for an extended 5 minutes has helped quite a lot of people to come in and then join us for this exciting session that we are all looking forward to. So we are all here today to discuss about GenAI in test automation. More specifically, to look at what is hype and what is reality. the definition of hype and reality could change depending on time period as well. What is hype today may become a reality very soon in the future. So, depending on what the current context is and what do we see in the world of testing and test automation, we thought it'll be very useful and interesting for all of us to have this discussion on what we think as hype now and what we think is reality as we stand today. And to help us in having this conversation, I'm joined by couple of industry experts, and I take extreme pleasure and pride in introducing them to you. Uh, in no particular order, I would like to introduce Murali. He is the Vice President of Engineering at Eltropy. He is an experienced technology visionary with over 22 years of expertise, focusing on developing cutting-edge SaaS solutions, especially within fintech and supply chain domain. And fintech is one area where we know there is a lot happening with respect to AI and GenAI as well. And he is particularly recognized for his strategic acumen, for his innovation, his ability to deliver top tier products with bleeding edge technology. So, Murli, welcome to the webinar. A great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
The next person that I would like to introduce is Rohan. Uh, he's a senior SDET manager at Jupiter. He's a seasoned quality assurance head with over 12 years of extensive experience in the e-commerce, cloud, SaaS, and enterprise software industries. Now, he's well known in establishing automation framework right from inception, and he's a sought after speaker in tech circles for his insights in quality engineering, agile practices, and continuous testing and continuous integration pipelines. So Rogan, welcome to the webinar and great to have you here.
Thanks, Aravind. Happy to be a part of it as well.
Fantastic. So, without much further ado, let's straight away delve into the webinar. And just before I do that, I would like to just give you a couple of housekeeping announcements. So, um, we intend the webinar to be a very kind of candid, more like a fireside chat. So, we are not following any specific scripts or anything. So, it will be like candid as it evolves, right? According to the flow of the discussion. So we would like this to be interactive as well. So if you have any questions at any point in time during the webinar, you can use the chat or the question options to type out your questions, and then we will keep an eye on it, and then we'll start picking it up. On top of it, we will also have a separate Q&A session at the end for us to go through any of the questions that are not answered, or that we would like to probably answer towards the end of the session. Right. So with those two announcements, we'll straight away get into the webinar now. So GenAI in testing. I'm sure everybody is talking about GenAI, and there is probably not a single industry which is untouched by this AI and GenAI influence. Being in the quality engineering and quality assurance space, Qapitol being an independent quality engineering firm, we are seeing the impact of GenAI across all our clients and customer base, regardless of which domain or industry they belong to, right? And while a lot of exciting thing is happening around GenAI, it is not that these are not fraught with challenges as well. While the scope of efficiencies, or the scope of effectiveness is on the high, and it is probably unparalleled. It is simply not uh, at the moment. It's difficult to quantify it, right? uh, but we do still see that somewhere there is some a gap in realizing what the potential benefit could be of GenAI. So with that in mind, today's conversation is going to unravel what we think is hype and what we think is reality as it stands now, with the help of Murali and Rohan, and that is what we are going to do today. So with that in place, we will first start looking at some current use cases, with real world examples where GenAI has been successfully applied in testing scenario, right? So to share our experience or to share our use cases, I would like to probably request Murli first to share his ideas and use cases that he has seen where GenAI has been successfully applied in software testing?
Sure. Thanks for that question. It's a very involved question, and I'll try to do my best here, Arvind. So, but before we go there, right? So first, I would want to, welcome everyone to a lovely afternoon here. We have a lot of humans, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, but I'm sure there are a lot of Gen AIs that might be eavesdropping right into this call, right? So today we're going to be exploring that as well as Gen AI, or more so as I would like to call it, the technological offspring of human curiosity and a lot of caffeinated programmers, me being one as well, right? So we are at the cusp of, I don't know, unlimited possibilities there, right? So welcome everyone. Now going back to the use cases that all of us are using, and I'm sure many of you are already using, right? We are leveraging Gen AI everywhere, but to sort of limit the discussion specifically to testing and testing based use cases, the whole industry is leveraging GitHub Copilot, right? Whether it's to correct your code for unit test cases, security test cases, etc. We've been experimenting a lot with such tools, not just GitHub Copilot, right? We have other tools. I've spoken to CodeM and a whole bunch of other software providers who are providing GenAI based developer productivity tools, and it helps us test as well, right? Second is we are using it a lot to anonymize data, for creating test data harnesses, for synthetic data generation. We do this all the time, right? And we are doing it as we speak because we are a contact center solution provider and we create synthetic voices, and GenAI does a fantastic job, right? So we are also looking to test our UI using, say, GPT-4V, which is a vision-based, which provides vision-based capabilities for looking at screens and generating test cases, right? And I've looked at tools where you just provide prompts saying,
Hmm.
"Oh, look at this particular website and generate test cases for me," and it can do a fantastic job, right? So we are moving in that direction, and we are experimenting. We've productionized a lot of all these capabilities. More importantly, right, one of the most pain points from a testing standpoint, I would say, is documenting and defect reporting. Either the developers do bad documentation, developers are unable to write test cases, unable to report defects. There are lots of Gen AI based capabilities which can do this at the click of a button, from defect reporting, collecting statistics, doing historical analysis, and suggesting improvements. All this at a click of a button, right? In my view, right, and this I say this unequivocally, right? Testers are the unsung heroes of software engineering. They spend most of the time testing the same things over and over, and I'm sure all of you can relate to it. All they want is to do more interesting, humanistic, and complicated testing than the rest of the team would appreciate. And we should go in that direction while Gen AI takes care of the rest of the process for us. So that's how I would summarize it, Arvind.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Murali, for this perspective. And in fact, it reminds me of one of the kind of probably a comic or a comment that I came across recently, where somebody was saying, "No, I would like Gen AI to do laundry and dishes for me than art and drawing," right? No, not the other way around, where it is doing the art and drawing, and I'm going to do the dishes and laundry. So it's important that where Gen AI is going to give us efficiencies, and as you said, it is the monotonous job that we want a Gen AI to essentially take up, whereas the creativity aspect still lies with the human element, right? So great to hear that perspective. Rohan, from your standpoint, how would you see the use cases of Gen AI, in the space that you work in, and anything interesting that you observe there?
Yeah, sure. I think to add on to what Murali just said, right, in terms of test data generation will be another metric apart from test case generation. So there are a lot of interesting tools in the market which have come up where product managers write PRDs. So you just upload the PRD and say the UX Figma or whatever design tool is being used, and it automatically detects the test cases to be run both for UI backend potential if the API contracts are part of it. So a lot of it in terms of test case generation, covering of edge cases, which sometimes may get missed, is part of something what we can utilize Gen AI with. And in terms of studying the historical bug data and code patterns, and identifying potential issues, suggesting improvements as part of code review, that is another area where I think Gen AI can add a lot of value. In terms of UI, I think we all know like there are multiple tools where you can record and play and compare it in newer versions. So any discrepancy or deviation from that is also possible with that. And yeah, nowadays we have NLP, or natural language processing, for test understanding, which GenAI can understand and interpret the natural language description of these tests. And last area that I think, in from the testing scope, it will add a lot of value in the CI/CD pipelines for DevOps, which can enhance the continuous testing efforts and ensure that these changes that are being tested are automatically tested as and when ready. So it basically brings the shift left testing into the scope. And yeah, these are some of the top areas where it will GenAI, helps in terms of efficiency, in terms of coverage, and in terms of consistency. So yeah, there are a few challenges as well, but I think we'll cover that later during today's session.
Super. I think continuous testing and running continuous testing as part of CI/CD, and more importantly, trying to gather the information in one place is a very key requirement. And though it seems very basic, this is a place where there has been real struggle as well. That different testing teams testing different applications at different points in time. Unfortunately, from an end user perspective, it is the orchestration of all the systems that play together to provide the experience that he or she needs, and bringing that information under one dashboard or in one view is a challenge. It's great that you have pointed out, Rohan, that GenAI is helping us in terms of making sure that reporting is made easier, right? And it is facilitating us to get a view of what's happening across different applications in a probably in a single view or in a common dashboard, and then for us to gain insights out of it. How much of utility do you think it has added, or how much of value it has brought to the consumers of those report, Rohan?
So yeah, in terms of value, definitely it's a great add-on. It enhances the productivity of the team, where a lot of repetitive tasks can be automated with AI. But if you ask, can it replace humans? No, it will make them more productive. You need the right set of people to use it right way. So yeah, I don't believe that AI can completely replace human intervention, but it can definitely optimize and make them a lot more productive. And yeah, perhaps where couple of years earlier, lot of people would be needed for a specific activity. Now it could be a few lesser people needed to run that more efficiently in perhaps leaner timelines as well. So yeah, all of this processes, especially we talked about test case generation, test data generation, uh, you know validation of various functionalities, as well as the CI/CD process. So all of this, the productivity gets enhanced and does add a lot of value.
Right. I think there's a question from Chaita Shri. Can you let us know those tools which generates test cases? What are the inputs for them? Is it a code or is it requirements? Um, well, I'll probably start with what we see, in terms of what we have used as well, and then Murali and Rohan, please feel free to add on. So Chaitashri, there are obviously multiple Gen AI tools. When we look at all, either it is like Murali was saying, talking about Copilot, GitHub Copilot, or if you're talking about any GPT, which reads text and then creates information insights for us, either using documents or using specifications, technical specifications. So inputs are multiple is what I can say. And I'm sure Rohan and Murali should be able to add more to it. Anything from your side, Rohan, to add on to this?
Yeah, I think I'll get to the question which was asking about more tools. So to give
Yeah,
you
tools which
a
generate
few
test
tools.
cases, basically.
Right. So yeah, there are a bunch of low code, no code solutions that have come up, for test case generation. A recent startup which I attended one of the demo days, and there's a company called Dev Assure. So right now they have built for web. They are still building for mobile, but it's a pretty neat tool where they work with multiple languages, as well as their sources of truth are exactly what I mentioned, the PRD, as well as if you have any Figma or design doc, and then if you have any API contracts, these would be their sources of truth. And they have various templates, so it's not like you have to be specific format or something. It's open to whatever formats your documents are in, and they generate test cases for you. And it helps both in the dev as well as QA lifecycle, where developers, while they are writing code itself, they have an option for their code to be analyzed and the test cases which were generated to be run. So it helps in better dev testing as well. And in terms of QA and automation, these scripts can be reviewed as soon as we have the PRD and uh, documents, design docs given to the input to the tool. Test cases can actually be reviewed, and in most cases it's pretty accurate in terms of coverage, and that can be edited slightly if needed, but it provides an early indicator on the quality of the build. So yeah, DevAssure is one tool. Then there are other tools. Apply tools is another one, which has low code, no code offering. There is a tool called Test Sigma, and then there's another one called Fireflink. So these are some of the top tools that I have been using.
Perfect. Thanks, Rohan, for that. I think another question from Renuka treads along the same line. So I'm hoping that whatever Rohan had answered now is, comprehensive enough for the question from Renuka as well. Continuing with this particular trend on using GenAI to process documents, or technical, be it technical or be it natural language, or process technical code and then start writing tests. One of the interesting things that I came across was, when it comes to requirements coverage, right? So we talked about how somebody can feed in a product requirement document, or even a functional specification, or even a Figma mock screens, or Zeppelin, whatever the tool is, to bring out the mock screens and the wireframes. How consistent the tests that are generated by the GenAI can be, right? How consistent it can be, because given the nature of the GenAI per se, the same requirements document might give us a different set of tests. So if I were the product manager or a product owner, I would have a question around, okay, when do I know that the test cases recommended by GenAI is comprehensive enough for the product requirements I have? So, Murali, would you like to take a call on that, or share your views on that?
Sure, absolutely. Right. So again, with GenAI, right? In terms of when do I know for sure, right? The answer is, well, it depends, right? That's the standard answer. But what it gives you is a base validation framework for you to attest and certify the product requirement document. And I've done it myself. And in fact, a lot of it is driven through prompting, right? Rather than just giving it to the engine and doing it. The better you prompt the engine, the better it's going to analyze, dig deep, and come back and tell you, well, this is what I see as gaps. So we do not need to learn a little bit of prompting. In fact, I've done trainings on prompt engineering, etc., which helped me better. So it's only as good as the prompting that we're going to do. But even without good prompting, I would say 80 to 85% of it is going to be done well. It's going to cover it, right? Now it gives a good baseline for, let's say, the developer or the tester to say this document is complete. 80 to 85% in its shape, right? And maybe brainstorm and look at other variations. What I do is go one step further. I don't do it with one tool. Maybe I do it with two, three tools, and the future will be like that, where GenAI products are commoditized. I run it on Perplexity. I run it on Claude. I run it on Claude is from Anthropic. I run it on Llama. I run it on ChatGPT, and actually get a holistic view, right? Because maybe their models are different and they might have different predictions. I use them, prompt it better, and get the view. The idea is to make sure I get 85 to 90% right in terms of requirement, because the common problem, me heading engineering and quality, is quality engineers will say engineering is not writing the right code. Engineers will come and say product requirements are broken, etc. Right? Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bridge the gap and say, look, this is the common baseline that we are operating on. Let's all agree, sign off, and move on. And with that, GenAI has become a very essential and vital part of our product development process itself, Arvind.
Perfect. Thanks, Murali. And that's very interesting way to solve that conundrum of requirements coverage. But I think it's nice that we have we have more than one tool, and then we take that kind of the common denominator across all those to establish our baseline and go ahead with that. Thanks for that. continuing with the topic, right? So where we discussed about the use cases where Gen AI is delivering us value. Um, we talked about requirements, understanding and creation of test cases. We also talked initially about automated test generation, right? So creating the automated test scripts based on the API contract or based on the code that's checked into GitHub. So Rohan, from your perspective, if you could share your thoughts or views on the automated test generation per se using GenAI, and how effective or what challenges you have observed there, please.
Right. So one of the challenges definitely is in terms of consistency, right? Like we could have tests generated which could typically vary every time because slight difference in text or words, keywords, etc. So to make that overcome the challenge of consistency, we could have a couple of approaches here. One is either a template based generation where we use predefined templates and patterns to generate the tests, ensuring that all the necessary requirements are covered. Or we could look at an alternative as a constraint based generation where we impose a set of constraints on the AI to generate tests within specific bounds that align with the requirements. So these are a couple of things to solve for the challenge of consistency. In terms of another challenge would be in terms of validation of the generated tests. So these generated tests, again, should be validated to ensure they are covering everything, and they will be validated against the requirements to ensure that coverage. So this can be achieved by, one of the things would be a requirements traceability metrics where we create a RTM to map each test case to specific requirements. Or we could look at automated coverage analysis where we use tools that analyze the coverage, code coverage of the functional tests that are generated with the
Hmm.
requirements. Yeah, partial human intervention would definitely be needed in terms of feedback incorporation and machine learning being incorporated there. The model is being trained to take in human feedback as well. So yeah, these are the top things I would look at. In terms of another thing would be in terms of the test suite management. So in terms of managing the test suite to ensure redundancy is minimized and the requirement scenarios are tested, we would look at prioritization and duplicate detection as part of what we use with GenAI as well. These are some of the
Hmm.
top areas I feel. Like these are the top challenges which GenAI would have and potential ways to mitigate that.
Right. Thanks, Rogan, for that. That's really useful. Again, looking at the uses of Gen AI in testing specifically, where we talked about requirements, where we talked about automated test generation. One other key area, where we are seeing good traction in Gen AI usage is on the test data generation, right? And given that data holds the key for the Gen AI as well to process the information and then bring out the outputs that are requested or that are prompted by the user of the Gen AI application. Um, how effective are we seeing the use of Gen AI in test data? And the moment I talk about data as well, unfortunately, I cannot take away the privacy and the security concerns of the data as well, because they go both hand in hand. So, Murali, if I would ask you to share your views on how effective Gen AI is or has been in generating automated tests, and how confident that we as the users are with respect to Gen AI, keeping that data private and secure.
Sure. Yeah. So my answer would probably be in twofold, right? So first is Gen AI helping us generate synthetic data? Absolutely yes, and it helps us anonymize data as well. There are multiple tools. In fact, it's for objective data as well as any unstructured data, like such as voice, video, chat transcripts, etc. Right? All of that binary data. It helps us in a great deal. Right now, going back to privacy and security, right, which is a big concern, and it's being spoken about in the industry, right? I would bucketize that into sort of four buckets, right? One is there could be biases in the data that's generated, right? Second is there could be security and compliance in terms of either sharing confidential information, PII, introducing profanity, and so on and so forth. providing inappropriate or inaccurate information. And the last bucket is misinformation or hallucination, which is very common, right? So that's what it is. So in terms of how we handle this, now the data is generated, how do you actually validate and how do you make sure that the data that you have is to build guardrail mechanisms? And at least in our organization, we have a well-defined guardrailing framework. And this guardrail is again in, divided into 4 different layers. So we do what we call is at the model level, which is the model layer, we make sure we add filters and remove bias and mitigate bias at that level, right? We fine tune the model. That is at the model level, right? Second is above the model is our programmable guardrail layer, where we do things such as PII redaction, uh, remove harmful content, essentially, and also mitigate prompt injection. Prompt injection can do a lot of funny things for you, as you know. Above that is the application design layer, which is what is very important, right, for consumers of data, right, whether it's test data or actual data, right? What we do is we augment well beyond automation. Okay, we've automated generated data, but we augment the data that we provided with certain citations that we have, saying, well, we provided this data, go validate this data, right? Provide citations and provide human feedback mechanisms to actually design it at the application layer. And above all that is the product layer, right, where we actually put usage best practices and also provide user responsibility in terms of using and guiding the data, right? And this has worked, and this is the framework we actually operate with within our company, and this has worked very, very well for us, Arvind.
Thanks very much, Murali, for sharing that insight. That's one of the main concerns that generally the industry has in terms of how secure and how private can we keep the data. But the way you have explained the the layered approach towards building, guardrail, where there is a safety net after safety net after safety net at multiple levels, right? So that is really interesting to note, and how this particular challenge has been addressed. Rohan, from your perspective, have you come across, or have you seen, or have you used any other safety mechanisms, or any other say architectural patterns to ensure the privacy and security of the data?
Right. So yeah, I think Murli covered a lot of ground there. But to add on to that, I think it's always a combination of, say, the client, which is, say, a software company I am using, I'm running, versus the Gen AI or third party vendor I'm working with. So we need to have checks at both ends. At our end, what we could do is have appropriate data protection measures in place, where anything that is being shared, we ensure it's encrypted, anonymized, to prevent unauthorized access or breaches. In terms of user consent, is something we should have, what all consent is being given, what all permissions we have given as a product. That should be pretty clearly laid out. And then another aspect is, of course, compliance with regulations should be adhered to by the third party, because we have GDPR in Europe, we have CCPA in California. So compliance with these regulations ensures that the user privacy rights are protected and enforced. And I think, yeah, apart from that, security audits and updates part of it, I think, was well covered already by Murali.
Perfect. Thanks, Rohan. I mean, though it is kind of a personal opinion or a perspective, right, in terms of how confident are we with respect to the privacy and security of data using GenAI. At this time, I would like to be, and I would like to know what our audience feel as well, in terms of their view or their confidence level on the security and privacy of the data. So, it would be good to know that, So we will see how the audience feel about it as well. And for the audience, if you're interested in knowing more such insights and observations and perspectives from a variety of sources, there is a GenAI in test automation report that Capital has published. So if you would like to get a copy of that, please submit your official email ID in the chat window, and you will be able to receive a copy of it, where you can find answers to the topics that we are discussing, and probably more perspectives from wider audience or wider participants as well, in terms of how they went about solving some of these challenges and addressing these concerns, right? There is a question from Kanika at the moment. Which are the open source tools which can help me generate synthetic data? Um Rohan, is that something that you can take up?
Sure, sure. So yeah, there's a Python tool called library rather Python library called Faker, which is used to generate fake data or synthetic data. It's particularly useful where you want to create mock data for various purposes, including testing and populating databases as well. And there's another tool by IBM called Data Synthesizer. So yeah, that also is used for generating synthetic data while preserving the privacy and utility aspects. So these are definitely couple of tools you can look at for generation of synthetic data.
Yeah, and I do see that many of the commercial off-the-shelf products that support test automation, they also bring in automated test data generation as part of their suite of frameworks or suite of their products. So that is also another option. If your organization is using any enterprise application, it is for test automation. It might be worth checking if there are any automated test data generator built in or available within that suite, because that has more or less become common with all the packaged test automation applications that are available. And more often than not, we see that they had test data generation in the past, but now they have really enriched it and taken it up to another level with the help of AI in terms of the suitability and fitment of the test data that's been generated, right? So, uh, continuing with with the topic, right? So, I think we touched upon the privacy and the security aspects of using a Gen AI. The next question that comes to my mind in terms of challenges of implementing Gen AI, right? So, how scalable it is, right? While technically, probably we are in a much better space to prove that things can be done, right? So I can send a requirements document, or I can send an API contract, or I can provide a particular code repo and let Gen AI do its magic and bring back the tests, right, to me. Um, we what challenges do we have in terms of scaling it, right? So if I am an organization with, just as an example, 100 testers, is this something that can be done at scale for all the 100? And if so, can it does the current cost model support such scale that makes it viable option for me? Murli, I would like to pick your thoughts on this particular topic, on the scale using Gen AI and the cost model that supports that.
Sure, absolutely. And this is a very important question. And this is something which our customers also ask us, saying, what's the cost and how do you scale? Right. So the answer to the question is, I think we'll have to do it in a measured fashion over a period of over a period of time. Use a run, crawl, walk, run approach. Right. So what when we do that, right, we'll be able to prototype quickly and then choose the right choice of tools. Right. So, but stepping back, right, can we move away from Gen AI? The answer is no, right? And according to IDC, right, the Gen AI market is projected to reach about 125 billion by 2025, which means rapid adoption is going to happen in the industry, and that's going to happen at scale. Second data point is the speed of our processors and chips is increasing 10 to 12x every 12 months, right? So that way Gen AI products are also going to be commoditized with the available compute power at our disposal, right? And models like GPT-4 are designed to handle large scale data and operations, right? This is more data to back our findings, right? And Gen AI tools also integrate seamlessly with other tools, facilitating scalable implementation, right? But what are the caveats, right? They are resource intensive, so we have to look at computational horsepower within our own ecosystem, of course, right? Whether we go for cloud based solutions, etc., and then build guardrails for data not leaving your premises, right? You have to guard it in your own cloud, because customers are very cautious about the data they send to us, right? And of course you need to have in-house expertise, which I think is going to come in. From a cost consideration, there is going to be a cost, right? You're going to see at least an upfront 10 to 20% or 25% investment from your side. but that's going to pay off over a period of time, which is why I said we have to use the crawl, walk, run approach, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also, it is not that you use one tool and fixate your thoughts on it. Again, my recommendation is to look at all tools out there in the market, look at all cost options, because certain tools solve specific problems, and Gen AI tools in the future might become domain specific as well, and I'm already seeing that. So look at
Hmm.
what best suits your industry, what best suits your use case, and then approach it uh, with a long term vision, but take tactical steps to get there. That's what I would say.
Perfect, perfect. And Rohan, from your perspective, right? So cost is one side. In terms of the scalability, while the GenAI application is meant to provide the necessary scale, it is meant to process a lot of data. Um, but do you also think that the GenAI tools that are available today are ready to scale at the moment, or do you have any reservations or concerns around their stability for now, or you would rather say it's still more of an exploratory and discovery, and then the real stability and maturity is yet to happen? What is your view, Rohan?
Yeah, I think most of us on this call might agree that Gen AI is at a pretty nascent stage. While it's something with tremendous potential, the models are still being worked on in terms of accuracy, reliability, consistency. So yeah, while it is definitely already adding a lot of value to most folks, uh, it's going to scale with time. Like, the models are still being trained, the skills of people who are building those models, they are also enhancing it to make sure that it can support scale. And of course, like you already mentioned, the cost factor comes in, where like, while the basic tier or freemium model works well for everyone, only the bigger firms, like with bigger pockets, can afford scaled costs for multiple users to use it. In terms of startups which are early stage, not really sure if paid solution at that scale at the moment,
Hmm.
the costs are not at that level. So yeah, I think it's going to always be a mix of what is already readily available on the cloud versus what we want to use Gen AI for, to manage the scale and cost factors.
Perfect. I think two important things that I kind of I gathered from from your response, Rohan, and your response, Murali. One is, it is very clear that we are not going to walk away from Gen AI. It is here to stay, right? So that is pretty much clear, and it's only one way forward, which is to adopt it, adapt it, and then progress with it, right? That is very clear. And Rohan, from what you were saying as well, that is depending on the organization and their size and their stature, etc. It need not be one blanket solution, right? So they could look at it in different ways and then try to utilize the GenAI tool in a way that can give them best return on investment as well. So I know there is a question from Drumil Sony on GenAI, any open source GenAI tools that can help in generating test data and functional tests from just Figma. Uh, what would also like to know tools which can be helpful through requirements document. So I think, Rohan, the same tool set that you had spoke that you spelled out before still applies here as well, right? Just for the
Yeah, so
benefit of, if you can, uh, recap that, would be good for all the audience as well.
yeah, so the first set of questions that we answered basically was in terms of tools which are open source and can help, in terms of test case generation, and, also coming up with scenarios basis either the PRD or the Figma links. So yeah, one of the, interesting early stage startups which is doing that really well is a product called Devadas. Yeah, been in touch with the team and doing a POC as well. Apart from that, there are slightly more mature tools which are there for a while, and they have freemium and paid models as well. So there's one called Apply Tools. There's another in terms of Test Sigma and Fireflink. So I will share those names as well in the chat again, so that everyone can easily not worry about spellings and pick it up from there. So yeah, these are 3 4 tools that I've used. Obviously, there might be a few more as well in the market, but I can vouch for these, is what I would say.
Thanks, Rohan, for that. I think at this juncture, it would be also pertinent to mention that at Capital, this is again sharing our own experience of using GenAI in building test automation frameworks for enterprises and for digital natives, right? So we have built a unified test automation framework that can help in the automation of tests for web, mobile, API, as well as to the data layer as well. So right from systems of engagement through to the systems of record, this is one framework that will minimize the need for multiple tools or frameworks, which increases maintenance, right? So this is one that could do the test across these application layers. uh, we started using GenAI as well into that for testing various application layers within an organization. So for example, be it a web app or a mobile app or an API, we have used GenAI in different phases of it. So if anyone would like to see a demo of how GenAI has been leveraged by unified test automation framework, again, you can use the chat window or the questions section to request for a demo of it. And this framework is built on top of open source, and I'm sure we'll be very glad to provide you a demo of how it currently functions. But back to the topic around the test automation using GenAI, and how it is helping in generating tests, in executing it, in providing reporting, etc. Of the various applications that we test, be it the web or the mobile, in terms of the systems of engagement, or be it the API, which do you think is more amenable or more suitable or the most beneficiary from GenAI? Probably, Rogan, I would like to start with your view first on this, and then go to Murali on that.
Sure. So I think in terms of most solutions that folks are working on right now, there's more support for the web and API stack compared to the mobile, primarily
Hmm.
because a lot of B2B or enterprise products are web first products. App is something which is built later, although if you do a vice versa on the D2C side, e-commerce, etc., mobile apps are fairly popular as well. Like in the middle, Mintra, for example, had moved to a mobile app only model before they realized that no, a lot of us are software engineers who are working throughout the day on a laptop or desktop, so it doesn't make sense to just let go of that model. So yeah, I think web and API have a wider adoption in terms of extensive documentation, making them a rich field for training the AI models. And yeah, web applications tend to have more complex user interfaces and interactions that can benefit significantly from Gen AI driven test case generation, and in terms of accessibility as well. In terms of APIs, they deliver a lot of structured data, which is easier for AI models to understand and manipulate compared to unstructured data. These come generally in well-defined specifications like Open API or Swagger, which can directly be used to generate test cases and validate the API endpoints. So yeah, these are the two I feel which are more GenAI is more effective for these stacks because of all of the pattern recognition and scalability, speed, efficiency aspects which are there. In terms of mobile testing, it can also benefit in terms of diversity of devices, operating systems, screen sizes. All of that is something which can be built, which makes it the coverage aspect, because there are a lot of different variations of devices, right? Every other month there is a new phone being launched,
Right.
so different screen sizes, resolutions, all of that in terms of coverage would be pretty massive in terms of if that can be done. So yeah, that these are some of the areas, like I think web and API, or to answer the question in short.
Okay. Thanks, Rohan, for that. Murli, do you concur with that view, or do you see any different view to the application stack when it
No,
comes to?
yeah, I think I have very similar views, right? And maybe the way I would put it is different, right? So when I look at the industry and look at data, right? So the adoption of microservices architecture
Hmm.
is growing at a rate of 20% annually, right? And there is a lot of ecosystem support for it as well, right? Making it a prime candidate for AI driven testing, right? So all industries, technology firms are accelerating their journey towards microservices, so on and so forth, right? And so that's where I would say the focus is, and there are a lot of GenAI based startups and other products that are coming up to help test this ecosystem, right? And the reason why it's easier from my vantage point is it's easier to test these very individually, right? With
Hmm.
automated scripts. They follow standardized protocols, simplifying test creation and execution, right? They might have their individual services or APIs, and they are isolated, right? It's easier for us to isolate and test without full system deployment, which is a challenge for us in traditional testing models, right?
Absolutely.
Web and mobile are also, I mean, mobile is also easy, but as Rohan said, right, it's just the variety of devices which makes the testing variability far more complex. But I think we are not very far away from having solutions in the market which will help us there as well, Arvind.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks for that, Murli. So, um, I think we are getting to the that part of the webinar now. Where we will probably spend the last 8-9 minutes that's available with us to go through some of the questions that's been posted. So let me quickly go through the questions, and whoever is ready to take that up, please feel free. So I'll probably start from the bottom and then go to the top. So the last question will probably be picked up first. So sorry for those who put it before, but it's easier for me to scroll from bottom to the top than the other way around. The first question is, what would be the test strategy and approach to test GenAI tools that we have customized for any client? So the question is about testing the GenAI tool itself. Any views on that, Rohan? Would you like to share your thoughts on
Sure.
how you would like
So,
to?
in terms of testing the tool, like I said, we would have to test the reliability, consistency of the tool, results from the tool. So, yeah, have your expected behavior. You should know. You will obviously know how your product functions. In terms of the test coverage, whether what the GenAI tool is providing is it matching in alignment. Once you leverage the tool to actually generate test cases and automated code, you run an actual functional test coverage to ensure validate what is the coverage of the tool. In terms of consistency and reliability, like make sure like test it out against various scenarios you have to test and see whether the results are consistent. Like I said, constraint based or template based ways would be the ways to look at it. So yeah, these would be a couple of areas that I can look at to how to test the tool. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, again, I'm sharing, my own experience as well, right? On how AI has been used and tested as well in real life application, from a banking perspective. So when we used to run a huge credit card repricing program. So what it essentially means is that we basically change the interest rate applicable on credit card spend from X to Y based on certain factors, right? So based on the person's repayment behavior, based on the cardholders spend behavior, etc. It was driven by AI, and the way we would validate whether this is right or wrong, apart from looking into the technical aspects of the model themselves that run. One of the best ways is basically take isolate an environment in production, and then put the data into there, and then do a sort of A/B testing where your beta is the new repricing strategy that's run by the or suggested by the AI, versus A being your existing production repricing strategy, and then C, compare the results how it goes, right? So this is one way where we have seen that the effectiveness of the AI tool per se is tested by the results rather than going into the nuts and bolts of the AI tool itself. And that is how I have seen being used. And same is the case with identifying fraudulent transactions as well, because of the various transactions that happen, be it account to account payments, or be it card based transactions, whether it is a debit card or a credit card, or be it mobile phone based payments, using wallets, etc., right? So there as well, the decisioning has to happen real time, and the best way that the organizations go about trying to validate the effectiveness of the fraud strategies to identify fraud transactions is through testing it out with the data in a isolated environment. Murli, do you have any other views or points on how the AI tool itself could be validated?
Yeah. So in fact, it's a very relevant question, right? And in our product, what we do is we have replaced our chatbots with GenAI based bots, right? Now
Hmm.
GenAI, and it's very specific to each customer. It's not customized. It's the same framework, but it's very specific to customers based on their domain. So what we do is actually we start off by generating the data specific to that domain and their data set, right? And customers are free to actually ingest or inject any data that they want, right? And we run our tests, right? We run our tests. We make sure test it for from a model standpoint for accuracy, responses, etc. Because we create our own vector search databases. We solicit feedback from customers, but we cannot capture all the test cases there. In many cases, what we do is much like a chat GPT or a Claude or whatever, we actually give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, which can actually help with instant feedback, and we take that feedback immediately and work on it, because there is of course an analytics engine running in the background, right? And we are able to identify hallucinations when it goes outside bounds and make sure we
Hmm.
fix it. More importantly, right, as I said earlier, for every response we give a corresponding citation which helps validate our testing. Okay, you're answering to this question, and this is the answer that I'm providing, but what is the source for my answer is very important, because it is a trust but verify solution. Okay, I'm trusting your solution, but let's say for example, what's your loan rate as an example, right? Say for this particular credit union, this is my loan rate and this is the best we can offer you, and here is the citation. It could be a document, it could be a link, etc. So that now the members can actually go verify, click on it, and go back and say if it is hallucinating, they can do a thumbs down, etc. So GenAI testing is cannot be done holistically. That's the answer, right? We can even your chat gpts and other llms will actually hallucinate, but how do we improve it continuously is what we need to focus on, by providing citations, by testing module accuracy, by providing the right data and creating the right vector search databases which are more specific to that data set. And that will help us really go good in terms of the quality of the LLM solutions we offer, Arvind.
Yeah, thanks, Murli, for that. In fact, that kind of reminds me of the work being done in the explainable AI context, right? So while everybody was talking about AI, the people are also looking at how can I make the AI decision more explainable, right? And then you touched upon it by showing that the necessary citation attached to a particular decision, right? That helps people, users basically get confidence on the decision being made by the AI tool, and that is how it gets validated as well. And I do remember that certain specific legislations, including GDPR that Rohan was talking about, specifically gives a right to a consumer to challenge any automated decisions made by systems, including AI, which means that any organization, for example, right, and also somebody is applying for a loan in online, and then their decision, the loan application gets rejected through system decisioning process, then the loan provider is obligated to review the decision if it is challenged by the user and explain why that decision was made, which makes it even more important to have the necessary auditability or the trace as to why the AI or the Gen AI in this case came up with this particular decisioning, right? So it's very interesting to note how it has been done at your end, Murli. Thanks for sharing that view. Rohan, anything on your side on this to add to, or shall we go to the next one?
Yeah, I think we began with me answering about this. So, yeah, did I miss something? Like, I was sorry, I was answering one of the questions in the chat. I think
I think
Smita
we
was
are good.
asking.
Sorry, I do remember we started with you, right? So I think we heard your perspective as well. Yeah, thanks, Rohan, for that. I'm also conscious of the time we have, so I'll probably pick up two last questions to go through. There is a question that says, "Is API automation possible through GenAI, as we can do it from Postman scripting through making collection? Is there any UI tool for these procedures which we are carrying out right now?" apart from Postman scripting or REST API automation? So the question
So I think,
essentially is, yeah, sorry, Rohan, go on.
yeah, I think one of the folks in the audience itself covered it well. That Drumil has answered that postbot, which I agree is one of the good tools for this particular use case. And yeah, like uh, I mean, in terms of alternatives for Postman, I'm sure people are aware, right? There's advanced REST client, then yeah, these are a couple of more such tools as well. But yeah, Postbot is one of the good tools in terms of API, and then there's another platform called Hypertest as well, which solves for API test automation use cases.
Yeah, perfect. Probably the last question that I would like to pick up is from Saurabh Malik. Cloud providers like AWS and Microsoft Azure are also offering GenAI solutions and tools. What do you think the approach should be in terms of choosing tools? So, Murli, would you like to share your thoughts on how you would possibly approach evaluating this GenAI solution and then picking up one?
Yeah, I think I alluded to this earlier, right? The market is getting very crowded and also getting commoditized, right? To be very honest, right? We have to pick what best fits our needs and use cases rather than going with a particular brand, or with the best in breed solution or so, because I see GenAI solutions becoming more and more domain specific, right? So we'll have to look at solution which best solve our needs and our capabilities, right? If we have to look at developer productivity, look at tools in that space. Or if you want to solve a knowledge base GenAI problem, go evaluate tools, right? So if we just use one tool for an all-encompassing solution, it's not going to work. So the way I see in the future is we might have small GenAI solutions which cater to specific needs, which cater to specific domains. That's what we need to evaluate. There is no one size fits all, and that is not going to work at all, Arvind.
Perfect. Thanks, Murli, for that. I think just to kind of add on to that for Saurabh. So, if you're looking at a specific evaluation criteria to choose, which tool that we would like to go with, as Murli said, right? So, you would look at a business fitment in terms of whether this particular tool is fit for your business domain, and your technical fitment as well, in terms of whether this tool fits with your current technical estate or the architecture that you have. Then you look at things like the cost, what is the time of implementation, and the and the risks around it. I guess with your business fitment, technical fitment, risk, cost, and time, I think pretty much these five factors will help you evaluate the tool and then come up with the right decision there. um,
I think you
okay,
covered
I
it
think
pretty well. Adding a couple of
yeah,
things
sorry, go ahead.
like compatibility with your tech stack, scalability, and ease of use would be some more factors to add on to what Arvind already just covered.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. I think so. I think we're getting a good kind of evaluation criteria drawn up here, so that can be useful in evaluating the tools and then choosing the right one for our needs. Fantastic. Thanks very much. I think we are coming to that part of the webinar now. Where the time is up. I'm conscious of it. Uh, Personally, it has been very enriching for me, Murli and Rohan, having this conversation. So didn't realize the time flew so fast. But during the process, not only the audience, but I have got a lot of insights from our discussion on this. Thanks very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
It was a
Arvind, for
pleasure
having
being part of
us.
the session. Sorry, go on, Ron.
Yeah, I was just saying thanks, Aravind, and Capital QA. Great job organizing such a interesting session and great set of questions. And we had wonderful questions by the audience as well. So thanks a lot, folks, for attending. And yeah, looking forward to more such events.
Perfect. And for the benefit of audience, again, if you are looking at GenAI in action in test automation framework that uses or leverages open source, especially, please do register for register your interest in the comments or the question section for a demo of the Qapitol's unified test automation framework. I hope you have also enjoyed the conversation and hopefully uh, gained a good insights and knowledge about GenAI, like me. So and I hope that your time is also well spent here. So thanks very much, all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
You folks. Bye bye.